right, cool. So we are officially live now with Dan Bragg. So you have a marketing agency. You scaled it up. Now, to give everyone context, how did you start your agency? What's your background story into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I started about 7+ years ago. It was fresh out of university. I was going the route that everyone kind of follows their parents, whatever they say. And my dad's an engineer, so that I figured that was my career. I was going to be an engineer in a cubicle, and was going through that degree, and I realized I hated every moment of it. I was more so doing it for the sake of my parents, just to make them happy. And then I knew that I always had an interest in the digital world. Like, so I was always a geek. I was always doing something online, whether it was designing something on Photoshop, whether it's building some sort of website. And I realized that after university ended, I was like, I don't really want to try to get a job because that's not really what I want to do. I don't want to sit and be told what to do all day. I'm rebellious like that. I like to be my own boss. So I figured, well, I'm good at graphic design. I'm good at web design. I've been doing this as a hobby. Let me try to monetize it. And then, of course, all the doubts came in. Like, why would anyone pick me? Why would anyone want to work with me when there's so many other people to work with? Who am I for anyone to want to work with me and all? Like, what do I charge? There's so many questions that came up. And then one day I just said, you know what, screw it all. I was just going to do it. And literally put together whatever portfolio pieces I had. Like, I knew at the time that I didn't have much, but whatever I had, I collected together. Whether it was work from the very, very past or something recent I worked on, it was all part of my portfolio. And the way I thought about it is somebody out there is going to appreciate what they see and they're going to be willing to pay some money for it, even if it's very cheap. And I decided to go ahead with that. Got my first client. It was very, very cheap. It was like $50 for something they needed. They needed a logo made in 3D. And at the time, it was 2 seconds for me to do. So I was like, well, $50 for a 2-minute job or whatnot, plus communication, plus emails. I was like, that's pretty good. And at that point, I felt like I hit the jackpot because I was like, if I just got a client to pay me $50 for that kind of a job, I can only imagine what else I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just escalated. The $200 website came in. I was like, wow, like that will take me 2 hours to make. I'm making $200. I'm thinking I used to be making $25 an hour as a lifeguard, standing at the pool board. Now I'm going to make $100 an hour to do something I love. So I was like, this is it. This is my calling. And next project came in, $1,200. And I was absolutely ecstatic. And then that's when you start realizing as a business owner, or at that point, you have three or so clients, you're starting to build a business of some sort. Clearly there's some sort of interest and you found some sort of a market that's willing to pay. That's when you start learning about all the issues in business where clients take advantage of you and they push to the limits with it, squeeze everything they got out of you and call you whenever they want, right? Like I'll have calls at 10 p.m. at night sometimes just because they need some update. And that's when slowly over the years I've learned to improve my system, put some boundaries, know how to charge better. And 7 years later, I decided that I'm going to pass on the knowledge to the community, and I started communities. I have Facebook, Instagram groups, and Instagram community, and people are asking me questions daily. They're sending me DMs, private messages, ask on the groups, certain situations. And after this long in the industry, I've been through quite a bit. I still don't know everything, but I've been through quite a bit of scenarios. And a lot of the beginner questions that I'm being asked are no brainer because I've been through it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now,
that's my story in a nutshell.
now, did you have any experience prior to website development? Because you say UI UX, website development. Did you have any prior knowledge in building websites?
Not one. Well, I first started the agency. I had the basic knowledge in coding,
Okay.
just to get some stuff going, just because I was interested in it.
Yeah.
What I would say before I actually started my agency, I had a startup idea that I wanted to do, and I don't know if you're familiar with Craigslist.
Yes.
Yeah, so I tried to. We all know Craigslist is boring looking. It's very old school, right? It's very bare bones to the point, which is probably why they're successful. But I was like, let me try to make something like that, but more modern. And that was my goal. And I built the whole agency. I built a whole company supposedly around that. And I've tried to go around hiring people to build the site for me, but I was very cheap. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know like who to hire, how to find them. So I was posting on Craigslist, ironically, to find those people. And I found some people, but they weren't giving me the vibe that they knew what to do, and I was feeling like I know it all. So I went on YouTube and literally learned all the programming languages to build it myself. A year later, I learned like 6 or 7 programming languages because I was so committed to it. And that's the takeaway from the whole story: is if unless you're crazy and committed, don't even bother. Because like I was so focused, that's all I cared about. My ex even left me because of that, because I didn't pay attention to her. It was all I was thinking about from the moment I woke up. If you don't get up excited in the morning to do something like the business you're working on, then you're probably not in the right thing.
Yeah,
Like you gotta
what's
want.
crazy?
What's that?
Like the crazy thing that you said that you learned different programming languages, is that say you take a class and it's just about programming languages and that's it, right? There's no real purpose of it, right? But
Yeah,
because you're using this application to learn about website design and whatnot, you take more interest in it, right? Whereas if you just learn a subject just to learn it with
yeah.
no real application, then it can get boring, right? But just the fact that you had an actual application, that you had an actual reason to learn it, gave you that extra push to
Well,
learn
you
all
have
those.
to have a purpose, right? Like when you go to school and you go to classes, the only purpose you really have is to get a A plus and get a degree at the
Yeah,
end, so you can get a job.
yeah.
But every project they give you, most of the time, I don't say all the time, but most of the time, there's really no purpose aside from the prof being happy with it, right? So that's why I was never motivated. Like I would just do whatever projects for school and I would just get it over with. Whereas this was literally for myself. I truly believe there's going to be the $1 million idea. And I was studying it. I was interested. I was getting results. And progress is the biggest motivation because every time I would learn some sort of a code that I needed for application I was building, every time I'll get that done, it would be so satisfying because I figured it out. And then I'll be like, okay, next challenge. And I'll figure that out. And some
Hmm.
things that I was like, there's no way I can make this, but I still tried. And then next thing you know, I had it ready. That's when I was like, whoa, like I can actually do stuff. And next thing you know, I had, I don't know how many languages I learned for coding. And a lot of it was through Google, asking questions, YouTube, going on specific websites to forums, asking questions, right? Like, hey, I have this issue. How do I solve it? And people will give me their answers and I'll figure it out. And it helps because now let alone I learned all those languages, but it also the foundation of my business. Because when I started doing web design as a service, at the time I didn't think, let me outsource. I thought, let me do every project myself because why would I want to split the profit with anyone?
Hmm.
And then it hit me one day where I was thinking, well, let me try this. Let me give someone the project, make sure I have a margin so I'm making profit, and they'll do the work for me. And now we'll manage the client. I'll make sure the quality is there. I'll make sure everything is on point as if I did the project myself. And then I realized that as soon as I did that the first time, I had another project come in. And I'm like, well, now I can do the same thing again. So I hired another person. So I had 2 people working on 2 different projects at the same time. And then I was like, well, shit, I have a lot of time to work on other things. Let me get another project. Let me do marketing. Let me work on my portfolio better. So I worked on all those areas. Next thing you know, another project came in, another one came in. And at that point, you're like, you have 4 or 5 projects and you realize there's no way you could have done them all at the same time, let alone have your own life,
Hmm.
right? And make profit all on top of that. So I was like, now I have delegated the work. Everyone is doing their part. Work is being completed. Clients are happy. And I'm literally hanging out, just talking to clients, right? So what I've learned is over the years is how do I improve my process so I don't even have to talk to my clients as much.
Wait, just to provide the context. So when I think about website development nowadays, I mean not nowadays, but a lot of entrepreneurs they do this where if they use WordPress, you can download any theme, and then you have your own JavaScript or custom CSS to really customize the website, right? But you made your websites from scratch.
At the beginning, yes, literally
Okay.
everything was custom HTML, CSS, all of that was no WordPress. And for the longest time, I would say for the first 2 years, I wasn't touching WordPress. And I remember even arguing why. I was like, well, why would I want to use a platform that has so many codes to make it drag and drop easy for users, where all of those codes are always loading every time you open the website when you don't even need them. Whereas if I create a bare bone from scratch code, then only the things that you need will be loading.
Okay, so you made
So,
it much
so
faster.
It'll be faster, it's more efficient, and realistically, every client they build a website for, how many times do they really need to go on a website to touch anything? Right? They don't
Many
go on it.
times they have content creators, don't they have like?
But if they have content creators, that's when they write the Word document, send it to us, and we'll update it for them. That's what I used to do back then.
Okay.
Then I realized that yes, there are a lot of clients that are willing to go on the website. There's staff, there's e-commerce sites that they want to upload products to. And yes, they can ask us every time, but that's not efficient for us. I don't want to keep getting calls and do work for free whenever they need something
Mm-hmm.
updated. So we introduced WordPress. We still do everything from scratch. So I know you said themes. We do custom design from scratch, and then we custom develop a theme based on their requirements.
Okay, makes sense.
The theme based what you're talking about is when a client calls and they can afford 15, 20 grand for a website. That's when we go, okay, well, there's a theme based option where we research a theme for whatever your needs are. We'll select the theme, make sure all the branding is changed. We'll make sure I upload the content and set it up for you. So that is the cheaper route because it's quick. Obviously, it's pre-made. Somebody else developed it. The reason I argue one way over the other is because a theme-based website, naturally, because it's cheaper, the quality of it won't be as good on the back end. It might be a pretty set on the front end, but the back end might be different because somebody else developed it. I don't know what they've done, what code they injected somewhere, right? So any point in time they decide to hack the site, they can because they've developed it, and there was no way I could have ever found it. So there's a
Yeah.
risk involved, right? Obviously, it's unlikely because most team developers try to make money. They're not trying to screw people over. So there's definitely like something to be aware of. Just like when you're buying fake shoes, for example, where you know it's not the real thing, you're aware the quality is not going to be as good. It might look the
Yeah.
same, it look good, but you know it's not going to last long.
True. So now going back to when you had multiple projects, and you said that you wanted to work by yourself, but you didn't have enough time to work on 5 projects and then do your own stuff in your personal life. Um, what was it that exact? I feel a lot of entrepreneurs are hesitant to get their first hire. Now, for you, was it that you had enough money or enough cash flow to hire someone to do these projects, or was it an ego issue mainly?
No, there's no ego. If you ego in business is not gonna go far, right? You gotta make sure you're doing what's right for the business. The way I looked at it is, first of all, I've always worked from the profits. I've never taken money
Okay.
from my savings. So that's the first thing that helped in my business. I know it's a little bit different because other businesses have the physical product, physical location, so it involves a lot more upfront costs. But even then, even if you're selling products, you're still at some point you're selling some products right by yourself, you're making some profit. Out of the profit, you're gonna hire someone. You're not taking money out of your savings account, right?
Okay.
So in my case, when I sold a website for, let's say, $200 back then, I would hire somebody to build it for $100 so that I make $100 myself, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a margin there. And then next thing, when it went to 1,200 and 4 grand, I made sure there's a margin to be made so that the designer does his job, the developer does his job, the quality person does his job. Everyone completed the whole project, and I come in to look at it with at least 30 to 40% margin profit for myself, right? And then once I got the first project, the second project going, the third one, that's when I got the profit margins to hire people to do the stuff.
Okay, makes sense. Now, I think so. You create the website, right? And I think you mentioned that you also help. You get your traffic, or you help sites get traffic to get converted into customers, right?
Yes.
Now, for everyone who's like listening, people just use like young entrepreneurs, Gen Z, millennials, they all use social media, right? And maybe that's your main source of traffic, and maybe they don't have a website besides your e-commerce business, right? So how important is it to have a website? Because for some people listening, having a website and creating content on it can be kind of archaic compared to really using social media.
Okay, well, the way I look at it is if you don't have a website, and I'm not saying from a bias standpoint, if you don't have a website, you practically don't exist online. And social media is like, yeah, it's great, but when you make a decision to work with a service, you always have to think about what would you do if you were the client. If you want to work with a service, you want to go to a restaurant, for example, you look at reviews. That's naturally the first step. If they have a website to look at the menu, you'll do that, and it will make you feel better because you subconsciously you went on the website, you looked at their menu, it feels legit. But if you just kind of went on social media and there's no website to be found, you see maybe a couple of reviews here and there. It might be psychologically something throwing you off. Not saying the restaurant is a little different because you might still want the food and you might hear from other people. But if you've never tried the service before, like how would you feel comfortable working with them? If you need to hire a lawyer to help you with something and they didn't have a website, they only had social media, you'll be hesitant a little bit because you'll be confused why they don't have a website, right? Like
Yeah.
most businesses understand it's a no-brainer to have a site built. It's just a professional thing, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of like a lot of businesses that you would expect to have an office. I know COVID now hit, so it might not be as expected anymore. But I get a lot of clients sometimes ask me, "Hey, do you have an office?" And the reason they ask that is because you're a business. They want to know if they're going to pay you money. They want to know that you're established. You're not just a scammer online that has a social media presence, right? Because people need to feel trust. They need to have the rationale, the emotions all connected together so that they do work with you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Now, in terms of having the website, yeah, it kind of gives you authority, kind of gives you not a proof of concept per se, but you
yeah.
know, it makes people a lot more comfortable if you have a website, right? Like you said, if you don't have one, it seems kind of sketchy. Now, do you also work with, helping brands and businesses have content? Because I've heard that if you have a blog and you post in it every day, it helps with SEO. And if people search on Google, the chances of finding your business and service is much higher than someone
Yes.
who
What
doesn't
I
post.
would say to add to that point that you're just talking about is there is something called borrowing traffic versus owning traffic. Do you understand what I mean by that? By the
You said
difference?
wait, you said boring traffic versus owning?
Owning it.
Okay.
So the difference when you say, what if the person only has social media? Well, you
Yeah.
are borrowing the traffic if you only using social media. Because what happens if Instagram or Facebook decides to shut your account down? What do you do? Right? Like now all the traffic that you had on there is gone. Right? Like Instagram can literally decide to shut your account down for no reason because they had a glitch, and all the followers you had, all the people that listen to you every day will no longer hear from you just because you don't own that traffic. You're literally borrowing it from Instagram. Same thing
Okay.
goes for Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. But when you are having your own website, the only thing that can lose your traffic is if your server shuts down. But you can always have a new server. You can have a backup within 2 hours, right? So assuming you have a website set up and you have the SEO kicking in and traffic is coming in, and you're collecting emails, right, which is another source of traffic. Now the emails are yours forever. No matter where you go, no matter if you have any social media website, your email list is always yours. You can send whatever emails you want to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's called owning traffic. So from that aspect alone, I would have a website so that I can own my traffic. Social media will be the direct source to get that traffic to my website, so I can capture it and make it my own.
Okay. Yeah.
So
That makes
a lot of people think that just because they have followers, they own that traffic,
yeah.
right?
So you don't. Yeah. You don't. You're in the mercy of the social media platform. Whereas if you have a website, you own. Your monthly viewers and whatnot. You own that, right? And especially if you have an email list, which is a huge asset. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't really talk about email lists nowadays, but
And let
if
me just put it in perspective. I don't know, there's probably some viewers out here that will see this and their online dispensaries, for example, right? And it's legal in Canada. So a lot of marijuana users, a lot of cannabis dispensaries popping out. The only issue is just because it's legal in Canada, just because you're allowed to have a dispensary or whatever, you get licensed, so it's a process, doesn't mean that all social media allow it. So if you had an account and it gets shut down, the only hope you have is that you had an email list going on so you can make a new account and transfer to there. Now, I'm not saying and recommending things here. I'm just saying just to think about a perspective. What happens when your accounts on social media get shut down? Like
yeah,
always think about what other ways can you diversify your portfolio essentially. Like put an Instagram account with your portfolio or your services, have a website, do SEO on it, collect the emails on there. Now you have different channels to receive traffic.
so you think it's imperative for any business service to collect, if they start a new business, you say an entrepreneur and you start a business, the first step that you should do is create um, a website and then eventually collect emails.
Well, eventually, yes. I mean,
Okay.
depends on the business, depends on the industry, of course. But I would say majority of businesses are starting out that have anything to do with finding traffic online, whether it's a website or social media. you want to have a website for your brand regardless, because it's just a professional thing to do, right?
Hmm.
Even if it means you do it for free on Wix or whatever, right? Just get it done just to have, and then once profits coming in, you can make it more professional. But having all the social media is a no-brainer. Social media are all free to create. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, create all the accounts, right? Have your website set up on Wix or whatever platform, or HTML if you know how to do it yourself. Create that. You pay minimal amount for hosting just to have everything up and running. So like that whole setup will take you probably an hour or two to get it all done. You have all those platforms running. Now you just have to make sure you do some posts and you can repurpose your content. If you look at my Instagram post, I talked about it, about repurposing content. So let's say you make an Instagram post, you can create it slightly bigger and post it on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can make a video, put it on TikTok and on Instagram Reels, right? There's so many things you can do. You can put it on YouTube as well. Now you're doing one piece of content spread across all platforms, and it took you an extra 5-10 minutes to repurpose it,
Yeah.
right?
Speaking about content, now of course your agency is kind of named after you, right?
Mhm.
And of course, you can have an agency name something else or have a different logo, but because you're the face of the brand, there's an argument that if you have a personal brand, people would trust you more and would are willing to work with you. Whereas if they're
That's
talking
true.
to a logo who's can be trustworthy, they're not going to be as connected to that entity compared to a personal brand, right?
That's
And
not really true at all.
you
Like,
don't think
if
so?
does Steve Jobs and Apple have the same name? You know what I mean? Like, he didn't call it Jobs, he called it Apple. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like the myth that you have to have your personal brand somehow in there or your face in there is not really true. Like, sure, Steve Jobs was the face of the brand when he grew
Yeah.
it, but now he's no longer around and it's still kicking it, right? People distrust. So when when I started my agency, yes, I was the main point of contact, and most people knew. Like when they would leave a review, they would say, "Dan is so great." They didn't use my company name, right? But slowly, I told them, "Hey, make sure when you leave a review, you say my company name." I kept pushing it that way to the point that it became natural, and people see the other reviews. And I don't at this point, I don't mind if they say, "Hey, Dan was so great," because yeah, it's part of the brand, it's fine. But if I wasn't around anymore and someone else was running my agency at this point, it won't make a difference because the quality, the portfolio is there, the reviews are there. So I focused on the foundation more so than I focused on spreading the word about who is building the brand. I focused
Mm-hmm.
on the reviews, the case studies, the presence, making sure the traffic finds the company so that they know that we can do the job for them. They're not concerned necessarily about who is the person doing the work.
Yeah. And
So
in the first 6 months, I mean, I could only assume that most of your clients, that you got your clients from word of mouth, right? But now, of course, it's a lot of word of mouth. But what strategies do you implement today to have customers come to you?
so I would say, like I talked about earlier, the foundation is important, and I talked a lot about it on my everywhere on my accounts. I have a course that I'm releasing about this topic too. But the idea is that you want to make sure that your case studies are on point, because when somebody comes to your services or your product, they want to feel trust. They want to feel like this is going to solve their problem, right? And you have to think about it. If you are your own client, if you're the ideal client coming to your website or your social media, would you buy from yourself or would you buy from your competitor, and why? You gotta
Mm-hmm.
analyze that. So if you need your, let's say you have to change your tires and you look up tire companies that can help you, what are you looking at first? Well, for myself personally, I look at the reviews. So if that's what I look for, then my reviews better be good too, right? Because if I believe in that kind of stuff, chances are a lot of other people believe that too. So let's
Yeah.
get that out of the way first, get the reviews going. Now, what's the next thing I'm looking at? Well, how are they reputable? What have they done before? Like, what makes that tire company good, right? Let me see their website. Let me see their social media if they don't have a website. And then I make a judgment based on that. Now, assuming I land on the website of the service provider, now I want to see testimonials on the website. I want to see some sort of pictures that represent what I need to get done for myself. I need to see some kind of stories or case studies. In a design world where I'm at, people want to see if they're going to hire me to get their $20,000 website built. They want to know behind the scenes. They want to see the process. They want to see a breakdown of what have I done in the past. Like a lot of mistakes that I see freelancers do is they post, oh, here's the website I made. Click on that, you'll see it. Well, how did you build the website? Did you just like get a client, get payment, and you built it right away? Or did you go through a research stage, design stage? Like, what did you do?
Hmm.
What steps? And I believe that that alone, and that was my mistake from the past. I was just, here's the website, right? Here's what I've done. But I've learned from the past, like, let me do full case studies, full breakdown the process. Let me get a lot of reviews. Let me push for those reviews and make my portfolio. I have to be in love with my work. I have to be in love with my website, my social media presence. Because if I don't like it, why would anyone else like
Yeah.
it? And that's a lot of things that I see, a lot of questions that I get. Hey, what do you think about my account? And I'm like, well, what do you think about your account? It's like, oh, I don't really love it. I'm like, well, let's start there then. If you don't really love yourself, why do you think anyone want to work with you?
Hmm.
Right? That's like
And I,
the easiest argument.
yeah, and I feel like the social proof is so important. You can have the best product, best service, but if no one really knows about it or there's no social proof, if you look at Amazon, every product or every good product has so many reviews, and even me when I buy something, I make sure that's like 4.5 stars and up, and it has at least 50 reviews just to make sure that the product is good and whatnot. So if you have that
Well, what
social
I will
proof,
add about the Amazon point that you mentioned here, that relevant to when you compare competitors. So, for example, if I'm looking at your website versus your competitor, or I'm looking at your social media profile versus your competitor, when you're on Amazon and you're looking at products, yes, reviews are one thing. But let's say both of them have 4 out of 5 or 5-star reviews, both, right? One has a whatever picture, and one has a mint picture, right? Who would you buy from? Same price, same reviews. You buy the one with the better photo,
yes.
right? That's natural because you're like subconsciously like, well, if they have a better photo, if they cared more, if it looks better, then probably what I'm gonna receive is gonna be better too. That's just a subconscious belief. So if you have your website set up and it looks mint compared to your competitor, why would somebody not work with you? When the prices
Hmm.
are might maybe similar, maybe your price is a little bit higher, but because your portfolio looks better, it shows that you care more. You have more case studies, you have more reviews. That shows that you care more, even if you haven't been around for this long. I've been around for 7 years as an agency. There's agencies out here that've been around for 20 years. Why would anyone hire me versus hiring them? Right? I'm a smaller agency. They have a whole staff, like 50 people plus. Why would anyone hire me? Right? They look at not just the cost necessarily, because cost is important, but people work with their emotions, not just rationale. Right? If you call my agency and I say 20 grand, then you call the bigger agency, for some reason they say 10 grand, you're gonna evaluate what's the difference, right? Like
I
why
mean,
did
I can argue that they like you because I say that you're the face of the brand, and if there's another agency that doesn't have a face, and since you're producing content at scale, really, they can trust you more, and that's one argument that you built a personal brand, they trust you more, and that's why they rather work with you.
yeah, and most clients that ask why the big difference or whatever generally is because they don't understand the value they're proposing, right?
Hmm.
So normally a client would ask around if they like what they saw already, because their emotional reaction is to let's go ahead with this. I need this. This is going to solve my problems, and I can see a return on investment. Whereas with a big agency that might charge the same amount more or less doesn't really matter. Dollar figure is the least of the concerns at that point. If they're contacting the big agency, they have the money. They already know it's going to cost a lot. But the
Hmm.
difference between going with that agency is, are they going to be able to, on a personal level, give me the work I need without transferring to 50 people,
Hmm.
right?
So, yeah. So now that you have 7+ years of experience in your agency, of course, I'm not gonna say it's natural, but a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, they rather keep the knowledge, not share it, and of course just scale their business. But a lot of entrepreneurs, after they reach a certain point, they feel the need to share their knowledge and this share it and let others use this opportunity, this knowledge to make a business.
Yeah.
Now, why did you take that approach? Because of course, if you focus on that, there's going to be an offset to it because you can't focus on your business as much. Whereas if you help others, of course,
Sure.
there's going to be times where you can't focus on your business instead of focusing on others. So what was that decision exactly that made you?
So here's a couple of things. There's a couple of points I'm going to bring up here. First of all, when you say you can't focus on both, that's not true. because you can. It's a matter of prioritizing and matter of time management, and then also improving your system. I I used to work from morning till night. I'll be waking up at 7, go to sleep at midnight, and I'll love it, and I'll do it every day. But at some point, I realized that's not the route to go. Like can't just work all the time. I need to be able to have my own time. I have to shut off. If I want to go snowboarding because it's a nice snowy day, I don't want to answer clients when I'm on the mountain. And I
Yeah.
used to do that. I'll be at the top of the mountain with my gloves on. And I'll have to, like, oh my God, I need to answer, right? And sometimes there'll be a new client calling. I'll be like, I don't want to lose that opportunity. So I'll take off the glove and answer and talk to them. And my friends will wait. And I realized that that's not what I want, right? Like it's important, but I also have to set boundaries. And I realized, and that's very interesting when you finally figure this out. I work with less clients now, bigger costs, right? So I'm making more money than before with less clients. Those clients respect time more. They only call you between business hours because they understand. I literally made myself a decision that after about 6 o'clock, no matter how bad the urge is, I don't answer emails. Like even if it's easy, even if it's literally a yes, no answer, I don't answer. Because once you get into one email, you're gonna start another one. You're gonna start another one. And then next thing you know, an hour passes by. Right. So I don't know if you ever heard of the book, The 4 Hour Work Week. That was
Yeah.
one of the recent books I read, and I already knew a lot of things because I implemented them myself, but that confirmed a lot. So you only handle a few hours in the morning of emails, and then you don't touch them for the rest of the day. And
Hmm.
then maybe a couple calls during a certain time, and never do that again for the rest of the day. And that allowed me to do whatever I want other times, and then focus on getting tasks done fast during the time slots I have. So when you allocate a specific time, let's say an hour only for emails, you'll be surprised how much you get done in an hour because you have that deadline. We usually
Yeah.
under pressure, we perform a lot faster than we expect.
Oh yeah. I think if you give yourself a deadline, you're gonna really work faster. Whereas if you don't, then you kind of just take your sweet time. And just to mention the 4 hour work week, even though that book is super outdated in terms of the tools that Tim Ferriss uses, the principles are, essential.
Very relevant, very relevant.
Yeah.
And I would say that a lot of times when I was doing I'll be out somewhere walking around, whatever, and I'll get an email and a call, another email. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna take like 3 hours to get a whole handle it. I was stressing about it. I was like, I need to get back and get it done because I don't like the big to-do list. I like to clear my to-do list, right, as much as I can. And then I realized that took me like 5 minutes. What was I stressing about? It's always the case. Like, why did I think it's gonna take me this long when I got it all handled within 5 to 10 minutes? So then I
Hmm.
realized that process, and I was like, okay, well, let's do this timeline structure. Morning time is gonna be for emails and calls. The rest of the time, I can work on my business. If I have stuff to do on it, of course. Usually, I just follow up with my guys. I get a call or chatting with them to make sure I'm up to date with what's happening. And then the rest of the day, I can do whatever I want. And in this
Hmm.
case, I decided to let me give back to the community by sharing my knowledge. And there's a few reasons for it. The first one was if I teach other people how to charge 20 grand for a website, that lifts the whole industry up, right? That means nobody's gonna charge $500 for a website. And it's only a good thing. If everyone is charging 20 grand, that means I can charge double that at some point, right? Because the standard is raised. Right now, the standard is still low because there's a lot of third world countries that are doing it for very, very cheap.
Mm.
And unfortunately, until that's not fixed up, we're always going to be at that low margin. So right now, when I see 20 grand, it sounds like, oh my God, it's a lot of money. Like at least for the average business owner. But in reality, and I thought the same thing too. If you take me back to the year 1, 2, 3, 20 grand for a website sounded like impossible. It was like, how am I ever going to get that? Like you have to be lucky to get an agency to sign that with you. And then I realized it's actually not that bad because 20 grand now for a website for any business really is a no-brainer if they want to grow because what the value they get from it as returns is a lot higher, right? If we look at a
Hmm.
dollar figure, yes, it's a lot of money. But if you look at the returns, it's a completely different story. Because if I have, if I bring you one lead that brings you 2 grand, just for building your website correctly, not doing any marketing, that's 2 grand from one client. How many more clients do you think will come in over the next year? Right? Let's say 10. That pays off your website. And that's really conservative numbers, like for a high-end ticket, 2 grand entry. So 10 clients over a year, which is really doable for a website that doesn't do any marketing at all, just sitting there, right? Just spreading the word here, go to my website, whatever. That pays off your website right there. Now, year two, your website is doing full work for you for free now because you already paid it off. And that's the way, like, if you look at it from that perspective now, if you look at it from a different angle, it all starts to make sense. Whereas
Yeah.
if you built a website for $500 that does not bring you any traffic to it because the structure was horrible in it and it loads slow and it looks ugly and doesn't convert well, you might get one client in a year instead of 10. So it really comes down to how do you want to structure it. So you
Hmm.
can look short term or long term, right?
Wait, so how did you systemize your agency? Of course, you can scale yourself. You can say it's easy. You just hire people, but you need to hire people and tell them what to do, have certain tools to organize your tasks. What was
Yeah.
it exactly?
So I would never say it's easy because it's not. I've hired and fired probably 500 people, if not more, at this point.
Oh,
And I'm talking like interview, give them a project, see them fail or see them succeed, give them another one, and then see them fail and fire them. Like literally process. It's literally a matter of finding the golden nugget, right? Like it takes time, and I'm not gonna say it's easy, but you hire the first person, you give them a test project, and you watch the communication style, you watch the ambition, you watch how they deliver it to you, because you are their client essentially, right?
yeah.
And then if they do a good job and they impress you, like okay, that's good, then you give them another one, and then another one. Next thing you know, you work together for a year or two, right? And that's you find one developer, and that's the golden nugget. Then you're hoping to find another one. I've had a designer that I worked with for probably 4 years at some point, and then it got to a level where he kept increasing his rates, right? Like, and at some point I understood that, which makes sense. He needs to make money too, but it got to a ridiculous part where I was like, well, it's really digging into the margins, but also he got really cocky. He knows he's gonna get a project. He knew I was relying on him as my designer, so he started to get cocky. He was starting to not respond as often. He was starting to not update me, and that's when I started realizing, okay, well, I guess it's time. You know what I mean? It's time to replace him because he got too comfortable. He feels like he has me because I only give him projects and I always talk in the tone like, hey, I need you to get this done, please. At some point, I was like, I don't need the attitude, so I fired him and got a new one. And it's a good decision because now I have two designers that I work with for 2 years instead of just one that was cocky. And I have three more ready to go in case something goes wrong, right? So you learn. You always have people on the backup now. And they don't have to be on payroll or anything. It's just contractors. They're just sitting waiting for work, right?
That's all
So all contract. I've only hired a few people full time, mainly because I never saw the point of putting them on full employment.
hmm
They're, they're free to do whatever they want as long as they get my products done, right? Like they don't
Okay.
need to be on my payroll and get my benefits package. There's no point
Yeah.
because I give them product consistently. Matter of fact, they'll probably make more with the contract than they would have made it as an employer.
Mm.
Because if I pay them a monthly rate, if I give them 5 projects at once, I would expect it all done, knowing that it would have cost me way more money if I paid them per contract. But
Yeah.
right now they're happy, I'm happy because I know what I'm paying them, they know what they're receiving, and there's always a timeline.
hmm
Like as an employee, they'll have whatever time they want because they're an employee. They work by the salary for the month. Whereas with contract, I'm like, I need this done by this day or else. Like, it's
Now,
not that bad, obviously, but if you don't consistently miss the deadline, then I'm gonna probably replace you with another contractor easily. And the replacement is easy because you're a contractor. I don't have to file papers. I don't have to do taxes with you. I just tell you that's it. No more projects.
now, is everything virtual, your whole team, or do you have people within your space that work with you directly, physically?
Well, for COVID reasons, everything is remote. I literally just gave up my office in October because nobody was going to it. But I have a few people that live locally, but I never meet them. There's no point. Everything that we do is online. So Skype, Trello for management, texting, right? It's all virtual.
Do you think that's what you're gonna pursue now? Just everything is gonna be remote from now on. Say if COVID disappears tomorrow,
100%.
next 2 years, do you think you go back into an office space?
I don't think I'll ever do an office again, mainly because I realized that the reason I picked the route of entrepreneurship and being my own, uh, having my own company is so I don't have to be 9 to 5. Having an office, meaning I have to be 9 to 5, right? So I didn't escape the whole industry of working for someone just to be in it myself as an owner,
Yeah.
right? The idea was to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Money's coming in, clients are happy, and I can be doing like being snowboarding while getting paid. That's the idea.
Hmm.
So, and I at this point I've achieved that. Like I can,
Yeah.
I'm still working all the time. Like right now, this is technically work, right? This is not just pleasure hanging out, but that what I'm doing is I'm building my personal brand as we speak. Like what I'm doing with you is building my personal brand, of course.
Yeah.
But while I still have emails coming in, I'll obviously answer them for the next couple hours, and then I'm off to do the rest of the day that I need to, while my guys are working on the projects that they need to work on. Like I have my
Hmm.
content writer working articles, I have my web designer working on a new design that we need, developers working on 3 projects that we have ongoing right now. So there's everyone is doing their part, and my part is to make sure the clients are in check. Everyone is happy.
Yeah. Now, in terms of your personal brand, what do you do exactly? What programs do you have to, you said you're giving back to the community. What exactly do you have in right now or
Yeah.
project?
So my personal brand, I post a lot of content for free on my social media, so Instagram, on my Facebook group, where I literally share a lot of pointers, and they're all different in their own aspect, but a lot of pointers as to what I wish I knew when I started. So, for example, recently I posted about being an immigrant. Like a lot of the DMs I get are, "Oh, my English is not good. Like I have, like my clients don't understand me. Like I can't get a client." And now that was a question I kept getting a lot. I thought back to when I started, and when I came to Canada, my English wasn't great either. I'm like, well, how did I do it? Like, what makes me so special? And I thought back and I answered it. And I was like, it's not your language that's the problem, is the mindset. You think that the language that stops people from working with you, but really it's your work, it's your portfolio, it's your reviews, it's everything else around it. So maybe stop focusing on the language, maybe work on everything else. So that's when I made the post about it, and I got a lot of reaction to it because I'm sure a lot of people could relate, right? So that kind of stuff, those type of pointers. There's other things that talk about repurposing content. Like this is something that I wish I told myself when I first started. It's like work on all the social media. There's a lot of eyes. Work on Instagram. It's a big platform, right? Like if I had built my Instagram from 7 years ago, I would have had a lot more engagement at this point, right? 7 years later, that would just give me clients from Instagram without even having a website
Hmm.
if I didn't want to. But if other things I could tell myself, which is what I recommend on my account, is don't undercharge yourself, right? If you don't want to charge, I always recommend start with a project, whatever amount you can get, feel it out, right? See if that amount was worth it for you. I didn't know what to charge at first. I charged $50. I saw, okay, well that was great, but I didn't really like it. Like I can do better than that. I did 200 after. I was like, okay, this client kind of annoyed me here and there. I didn't like just getting 200 because I thought it was going to take me 2 hours. It took me actually a little bit more. And probably a total of 6 or 7. Am I happy with that? No. Let me charge more. Charge 1200 next time. And then I kept analyzing with this every single time, right? Now I'm at the point where the average project is 20 grand. And I'm like, I'm not happy with it. Like I know my work is worth a lot more than that, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling out the next level, right? So my recent project was 30 grand just for the design stage without even building the website,
Wait, but
right?
how do you know? Uh, just to play devil's advocate here. How do you know that your work is worth that much? Like, do you know how much money? Like, say for example, say you're an employee of a company and you do a self evaluation, and your employer tells you like how much are you worth? Like, you know what I mean? You got to ask yourself how much money are you bringing to the business in that respect,
Yes,
and then of course you get a piece of the pie. Do you know the numbers of
of
how much
course.
money?
Everything is being tracked, and based on my background, like what
Okay.
I've done up to today, I can see, okay, well, I built this website, I built this website. I can see analytics that I've tripled the traffic. Like, for example, there's a restaurant that we had here, a fairly popular one, a seafood restaurant. As soon as we restructured the website, doing absolutely no marketing for them, they had triple the amount of traffic.
Huh.
Now you tell me, if you have triple the amount of traffic coming to your website for your restaurant, would that be beneficial for the business?
Of course.
Of course, right? They got double them. I could also track the calls. They got double the amount of calls. So if the business is already busy, they get double the amount of calls. Whatever they were making, they just double.
Yeah. So data is important in this point. You know, you can't just make something and hope that it goes better. You need to actually uh, show the results or
Yes.
understand
Well,
why something's
so
working.
data is important, but at the beginning, like full disclosure, I didn't track everything at the beginning. I didn't know how. So when I first started, the way I analyzed where I'm standing was, is the client happy?
Yeah.
Yes. Did they leave me a review? Yes. Are they
Okay.
stoked and telling people? Yes. When I ask for a review, are they saying, of course, no problem? Yes. So all those are like, okay, there's demand. People are happy. Let me try up my rate a little bit. Let's see. And the trick was to be confident with the rate. Like when I started charging 200 at first, and then I said 1200 next time, it was full like, this is my rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if he negotiated down, I probably would have said yes. I don't know. But for some reason, I was like, this is my rate now. And then I went to, well, this is my rate now. It was 2 grand. And I just stuck to it. And for some reason, when you up your rate like that, you feel like, oh, you're gonna lose all the clients, nobody's gonna work with you. But you wouldn't know, never know if you don't try.
Yeah, I think actually in the 4-hour work week, they say, yes, of course, if you raise the prices, you're going to probably lose customers. But at the end of the day, your margins go up. And if you have less customers, you're going to have more time in your hands, right?
Exactly. What would you prefer to work with? $1,000 clients that pay 10 different clients, or get one client that pays you 10 grand? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather work with the one client that pays 10 grand and get 10 of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's making more sense to work with one big client, because I can practically do the same amount of work, maybe a little bit more because I care about the quality and all that. But it will be more satisfying for me because I can do everything else I want in my life while getting more money from one client.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually absolutely was crazy to me when I was starting to charge the 5-figure numbers. Thinking back, because I can't believe I ever charged less than that. You know what I mean? Because clients still pay because they see the value. And at this point, I've established myself to a level where it's nobody thinks it's cheaper than that. Like when they call, I actually have clients say, hey, I don't know if you do this type of small products, but and that's a compliment. They already looked at my stuff and they're like, yeah, this guy's way too expensive for me, but let me try. They don't even know what it costs yet. They just assume it's expensive.
Yeah, I think it's always not always as an entrepreneur, but even as an employee, to know your true worth. It's really important to know that. Now, in terms of tactics, I know this may be very subjective depending on what business, product, or service you're trying to sell here. But what are some really key aspects of a business? Of course, having a contact page is important, but what other things that you see that other small business owners have on their website that they don't have, that's really essential, that they're missing? What do you really see? What's really important nowadays to have on a website?
I think the clarity of what the message is all about. So when a person lands on a site, within the first 5 seconds, they need to understand what it's about. Same with your social media portfolio. When they come to your social media or your website, if they don't understand what you want from them, they're gonna leave. Like if you're having a service, they gotta understand in 5 seconds. Okay, this is what he does. Now this is some kind of credibility, trust that I can gain from it. How do I contact this person? That's what a person wants from your website. If it's a product-based website, like e-commerce, here's the products that he sells. It makes sense what solution he's providing me. How do I buy this? Okay, click here, I'm buying it, right? Like it has to be very simple, user-friendly, no like misleading areas. You don't want to trick anyone to do things because that's when you're gonna lose people. So website has to load fast, has to be direct to the point, has to have a structure to it so that people follow from top to bottom of what you want them to do so that they convert, right? That's what we focus on and when we build a website. So the line on the top is a nice image that represents what you do, a slogan, whatever it is that makes sense for the business, that targets SEO. Here's a click to action. What is it you want them to do? Do you want them to look at your portfolio? Do you want them to contact you? What do you want them to do? So if you want them to contact you, click here. They take you to a contact page. Here's your phone number that's traceable. Here's an email. Make it super simple. And in case you don't want to call or email, make sure there's a form there because they might want to just quickly fill out the form and click send, right? So
Mhm.
whatever it takes to make it easy for the customer.
Okay. And is it enough, or is it enough just to have a website and then just have blog posts? Because of course, to drive traffic, you can do Facebook ads, Google ads, local SEO. Is it just enough just to have a blog? And of course, SEO can take 6 months to really see
Yeah.
results. What do you really
Blog,
push for?
so blog, like people need to understand, it comes down to the content itself, and if people are resonating with it, you can have the nastiest website with the worst structure, but if the content resonates with people and they love it, traffic is gonna come in, right? And SEO is gonna be going in the right direction just because of that specifically. But let's say your content is not 100% yet. You don't know how to resonate with people just yet. Blog is not going to be the only thing that's going to kick your SEO off. You got to know how to do SEO properly in the back end. Your website has to be structured correctly. You have to have a lot of proper on-site and off-site SEO. There's a lot to it. I don't want to get technical here, right? But to rank a website, yes, you said 6 months. Yeah, that is the case. Could be longer depending on the keyword you're trying to target too, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but a blog alone, just by posting articles, is not going to help you rank number
1. Okay. It might take a long time. So you really strive for. So are you also responsible for the advertisements as well?
Like my agency?
Yeah. Do you do that a little bit?
Responsible is a big word. Like, yes, I am responsible for everything in my agency. So it's up to me if I want to run ads, if I want to get more exposure. Yes. Can I have one of my guys do it? Of course. It's a matter of, at this point, I don't really do much advertising. There's only a few platforms that I pay to be on just to get the exposure there. But most clients literally find us on Google, and at this point, they find us for social media.
Okay. And what makes you, I can see you guys growing vertically in terms of UI, UX design, website development. Of course, a lot of agency owners, they want to do everything, have full stack. Now, what made you want to grow vertically instead of horizontally? Adding more integrations, more things, more stacks in your business.
Well, everyone hears the term niche down, find a specific target, right? The idea I went with is, at first I started with everything. I didn't know what to offer. So I was like, I'm good at graphic design, good at web design. I can do a little bit of social media stuff. Let me try to offer everything. And I was like, I realized I'm getting a lot of requests for specific things. And a lot of it was more so geared towards website because that's what I was pushing more of. And because I enjoyed it more. And when I started to build websites, I started to really focus on, okay, let's get those websites out and then upsell the other services. And then after this long, I realized I really enjoy working with the healthcare industry, right? Let alone it's a good thing. And COVID hit, it's even a better thing to help the healthcare industry. There's reasons why I like them more than the other industries, but I picked that industry. And then what I did is, once I dove deep into making websites for healthcare clients, I was like, okay, well, how can I get even more of an expert in this field? So I would literally ask them, hey, what else do you need help with? Like, if you're a doctor and you need a website, what else do you need help with? Maybe there's some system internally that you need. Maybe there's a banner that you need to make. Maybe there's an email marketing that you need. And once you start doing those projects for those clients, the specific niche you're in, now you're solving their problems and you become more of an expert in solving those problems for them. So the next time I called the doctor, I already knew that he might need those things too. Right? Like, it's more likely that he had the same type of issues. Whereas if I call like a realtor, he probably doesn't have the same issues, right? He probably doesn't need half of the things that the doctor needs. So I'm not an expert in that field, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I can create a website for each industry, but I would prefer to work on the one that I'm an expert on, because I know I'll deliver better results.
Yeah, I think once you start to grow vertically and you have a lot more knowledge in that space, you can offer a lot more value, and you
can charge a lot more too.
Yeah,
right? Because now knowing that I don't want to guarantee anything, but knowing that I'm this close to saying I can pretty much guarantee this, that's when I can be like, okay, here's the price tag with it.
Yeah, and I think 7 years of experience, you kind of have the right to do that, providing so much value. And of course, in the very beginning, I think it's natural to try many different things to see what you like, what's resonating. and then after you find what's working, you can kind of just build on top of that.
Yeah, and what I will say is, and some people might argue this in different ways, but just because you pick a niche does not mean you're stuck in it, right? Like if you pick the wrong niche and you absolutely hate it, you can change it. Just don't forget the negative of that is you are restarting every time you change a niche, so that is a bad thing. You don't want to always start from scratch, but you're not stuck there. Nobody's forcing you to stick to that niche. So if you believe that you're not working with your ideal clients, you're not getting paid what you want, you're kind of working on projects just to get it done, just to pay your bills, and you're not really stoked on this, figure it out. Maybe try slowly getting other clients. Don't switch fully. Leverage your current niche, current work to switch slowly and eventually replace. So what I did in the past, I was focused on everything. Then I really liked the online dispensaries. So I started switching to that. Then I realized it's a tough market to work with. They always want something different. They always have issues legally. They always have different problems. So I was like, I'm not a big fan of it, but I already have a lot of work in this industry. I have a lot of random work from the past. How can it transition into what I want? And I will get a healthcare client once, I'll get another one, I'll get another one. And then my entire portfolio slowly will start just showing the healthcare stuff. Because I'm like, no, let me remove the other things that I don't care as much about. If anyone asks about it at some point, I can do it. Here's the link. But on my portfolio, you want to see it.
Yeah, I think having that will to make that transition, because people can just be stuck in one thing. And even with personal branding, if you just show too much of your one side and you don't want to show what you truly love, it can be hard because you're probably known for one thing, but eventually you might get sick and bored of it, and you have to make that transition.
I would also add that once you establish that you like a certain niche and you're really enjoying working in it, you mentally start saying to yourself, I'm not going to say no to other projects. I'm just going to increase the rate on them.
Yeah.
So normally, let's say you're charging $5,000 for those type of projects, but you don't want to work with those type of clients anymore. Instead of $5,000, you're going to say $7,000, because if they say yes, you'll be like, okay, I'll do it. If they say no, you didn't want it anyways.
Yeah.
That's kind of the mentality I got to at some point.
And that's another topic too, just knowing your worth and knowing when to raise your prices, and just having that will to do it, because you must have some guts to really do that, because you have to know for a fact that you might lose some clients, but in the long run, it might be better for you. So wait, Dan, I don't want to take too much of your time here. So if people want to hit you up, find you, use your services, where can they hit you up?
They can go on my Instagram, dan.bragg. Feel free to email me info@danbraggconsulting.com. That's pretty much the main channels that I use for now. Facebook, my group, the Web Legends group, if you guys want to look it up, where I'm always on there as well. LinkedIn, Dan Bragg. Everyone is Dan Bragg. So you type on YouTube, Dan Bragg, everywhere.
So yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. So if anyone clicks on that, they can check you on any of those platforms.
Awesome. Right. Are you going to tag this on Instagram so I can replay this?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Cool,
awesome. Man. Dude, appreciate it, bro. All right.
No problem. Thanks for the chat.